Billy there. I think that we should probably convene. We have a quorum. Actually, we got everybody, don't we?
Yeah,
Okay. First of all, everybody got minutes. Because they're in PDFs, you know, I can't sort of sit and change a word here or there, but they're, we've approved the minutes of the April 17th meeting, and we've approved the minutes of the May 8th meeting, and we have the minutes of the May 20th meeting, I believe. Is that correct, Tina?
22nd. Yeah.
And that was a fairly straightforward meeting. Is there a motion to accept those? I didn't.
I saw Janae's mouth move, so I'll second.
So all in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye. And Miles, your microphone is off as well.
Miles, we neither see nor hear you.
There he goes. No. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now I should be okay.
You're perfect. Practically perfect in every way.
So perfect that I'm joining the meeting on my phone because I couldn't find the password to update Zoom on my computer.
No, I've been told that there are also kind of phony, you have to update your Zoom things going around where they take over your computer. So be sure it's really from Zoom before you update.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, before we get to the superintendent's report, I would tell you that I brought the permitting applications for the shoreland zone for the building to Tupi Rooney a week and a half ago. And she's reviewed them. She finds no problems with them, but they do have to go in front of the planning board. And so we had to make 8 copies on paper of everything. And the planning board meets on the second Tuesday, which is July 14th. So they're not going to meet before then. And
That's in the evening.
I would like for some members of the committee to be there with me for this meeting. Judy said that she would try and be there, but I think that we need to have people who are knowledgeable about the whole program be there, and probably not just one guy on the spot like me who sort of freezes up.
Well, and I think that they need to see real people because the effect of not getting the approval is not having a license.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately. So that's an evening meeting?
So it's a 6 o'clock meeting. It's at the town hall. People meet around a big table spaced with masks.
Yeah, okay.
So
What date was?
So it's Tuesday night, 6 p.m., the 14th of July. Does someone want to check the calendar to make sure I'm right about that?
Tuesday is the 14th.
Okay.
And so I've just put it on. I did have a conflict when you and I met on the road in our morning walk the other day. I said I'd go, and then I was concerned about a conflict, but the conflict has since gone away. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. So go ahead.
I could certainly attend, but I'm not one of the people who knows a lot.
Well, sometimes there's just safety in numbers. Dick?
I'd be glad to be a number.
Okay.
And Dick, will you be able to go to that, Dick and Billy?
Well, you know, if need be, I certainly could make it.
Okay.
So that's 6 p.m. at the Northport Town Hall on Tuesday the 14th.
Yeah.
And it's probably, I mean, this is important enough that we got to have really all our troops available for that. So I would prefer it if Dick were there.
All right.
I would prefer it if you could be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem.
Okay. And just before the meeting started, Dick sent around an update on collections for billing for sewer and water. They're coming down slowly. There's still over $1,000 item from the butters who are under lien. There's over $1,000 from the village that's due. I'm trying to find my version of that.
There are checks in this month's warrant to pay village bills.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is this unusual? Is it because people aren't coming back to the cottage? Is it because they're not happy with the $165 increase? What's going on? Billy?
I believe that some of it is people are in different spots. So their billing is getting forwarded to different, the billing is different. Some people are up here and their bills are going to their houses
Hi, Meg.
in the wintertime and they're not getting forwarded.
New meeting?
Some of it is to do with
I'm
being
looking-
out of work on some people. I just think it's a combination of things, but it is higher than what we normally have this far past the due date.
Is it worthwhile putting out a notice? I don't want to mail notices to the deadbeats, but a notice reminding people generally on Denny's website that their bills are past due? No?
Well, Amy has sent out a bill to a friendly reminder letter to all people that owe money. She sent out on the 1st of the month.
Oh, okay. Then
So
you
that has generated some people to pay.
Okay.
So.
Hi, Miles.
So I think with what's come in this week, which is some of the higher numbered people who haven't paid in a while, and getting paid by the village, and that we're going to be dropping down pretty good shape, but we're still going to be up there if we don't get a few more checks coming in.
Okay. Billy's looking at the names of the people who haven't paid, I think.
There's about 21 customers on the sheet, on the thing on the wall.
I love that. Take a picture of it. I love to be able to glare at those people.
No, HIPAA. Okay. The superintendent's report.
Dick walked away.
Yeah, I gotta get a battery charger for my.
Well, while he's walking away, there's two things that I wanted to talk about. One, we built into our budget an increase in his compensation of an extra hour. And we never affirmed, it's one thing to budget it, it's another thing to vote that he get that. He's been collecting pay based on that additional hour. And we've never authorized Steve's asked us to vote to affirm that his hourly time has gone up to one more hour a week or a month. And I think it's a month. And also I would like to ratify that the payments we've already made at that time.
Okay, so Dick, tell us about your billing for your time and what's
Well,
going
it's an extra hour per week,
Per week, yeah.
you know, at my standard hourly rate.
So I do that as a motion to affirm and ratify, because he has received the payments, because he thought we had approved it through the budget, but that's a different step.
I'll
So-
second that motion.
Are your bills getting paid, Dick?
No, goes back to January 1st, January 4th. I've been short an hour each of those weeks since then.
Oh, okay. I would still ratify that he ought to have been paid it.
Okay.
And I'll still second that.
Okay. What that means is that we decided when we did our budget that Dick was spending much more time on the wastewater project, and we voted to increase to make that increase of 1 hour, and it just hasn't been happening. And so we got a query from Steve Castiglionis about it, but what we need to do is to make sure that he not only gets paid according to what is budgeted and what he bills, but also that the back hours also get paid.
Mhm.
So is that sort of all in the motion or not?
Yeah, that's all in the motion.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, that looks unanimous.
And then the second point I wanted to raise while Dick was gathering his materials is we do now have, because of Mike's resignation, we need to fill an overseer's position. I did get a query from Jeffrey in which he said, I take it someone is going to suggest that that's a job I should fill. And I responded, you betcha. So do you all feel comfortable on Sundays suggesting, I'll run it by Jeffrey again, but suggesting that Jeffrey be the person? He's here in the winter frequently anyways. He's certainly a thoughtful person around the table. Vicky has a lot on her plate with the trees, and Lisa has a lot on her plate with all the communication. So
I have nothing against that. I think that he's a good, reasonable person to talk to.
So we can make that recommendation and see if he, I think that Michael's term ended, I should keep checking this, in 2021. So it's not just a couple months. So it'll be
2021, that would be a year and a couple months.
Yeah. So it's, as I said, it's not just a couple months, so we can't proceed with just 4 people, I don't think. And I think that he's night and day in terms of what we could, I think it'll elevate our discourse considerably over what we've done in the past.
If we can get the president to approve that, I think we do better when we have 5 members. I mean, we've been lucky lately. Things have been interesting and everybody's been attending, but you know, there's nothing worse than to get short of a quorum. And to have someone who's in the village always helps as well.
Okay, good. Those are the 2 things I wanted to make sure I raised.
Do you want to show of hands? I mean, it's not a vote, but do you want to show of hands? Okay. Nobody against. Superintendent's report.
Do you want me to speak to that, David?
Well, yeah, I think we need an update on enterococci, and I think that we need to talk about the water leak, and I'm not sure whether there are other issues as well.
Well, the big highlight of my report is the difficulty that we're having with enterococci now. It's quite reminiscent of what we experienced with fecal coliform with the IDEX lab test methodology. And so we're experiencing that again with enterococci. And it's probably due to another chemical interference. The solution seems to be to lower the dilution.
So is it a colorimetric test again?
It's another colorimetric test as well. Interestingly, one test was one sample result was less than 10, according to the lab, or it was greater than 24,200. So it was either or, So obviously there's a problem distinguishing the colors, in this test methodology of the IDEX laboratories test.
Are we the only treatment plant that is having problems with this, or are the other treatment plants also having problems with this?
Well, I don't know.
Go ahead.
The problem is, the methodology works great for drinking water and secondary treatment plants.
Yeah,
It's not working very well for primary effluents. And you know, if it's a mechanical primary clarifier where sludge is being removed almost continuously or daily, I think they're having a better go of it than those like us who have septic tanks where, you know, sludge isn't removed, but, you know, twice a year.
yeah.
So in any event, you know, the NEL, IDEX, and now the DEP is recommended we go from a undiluted from an undiluted 1 to 5 to now a 1 to 10 dilution. These tests get set up for enterococcus, just like we had to do with fecal. Whatever the chemical interference is, I mean, nobody's suggesting that it's maybe sodium hypochlorite or hydrogen sulfide that's causing this chemical interference. The best I can get out of anybody is that it is a chemical interference and rather than a biological interference. So, you know, I think in a couple of weeks, you know, if this 1 to 10 dilution ratio, setting up the exam eliminates the chemical interference, I think we'll know that in a couple of weeks. And if that's the case, we can then go back and invalidate, you know, the exceedances, clean up our record, so to speak. So
Okay.
I think it's probably going to happen. The only problem is that and I raised this question with Jim Crowley at the DEP, is that we can do the 1 to 10 dilution, but if it's less than 10, you know, we still would exceed, you know, the discharge limit of 8, you know, for the monthly average. So what do we do? Are you going to recognize full compliance with a less than 10, or are we going to have to go to an 8-fold, you know, dilution factor and then risk, you know, still?
And what did he say to that?
Huh?
Did he respond to that?
It up at their non-compliance review committee meeting, which was 2 days ago. I haven't heard from him since.
Okay.
So, you know, like I say, this is just reminiscent of what we experienced with fecal coliform and chemical interference with these IDEX.
Are we doing a second track test to confirm that they're false positives?
What's that?
Are we doing anything like we did for fecal coliforms? Are we doing a second track test?
Well,
Different methodology.
We had the luxury last year of having Fernie do side-by-side duplicate type, you know, analysis, you know, with the NEL lab. That's a filtration method. There is no chemical interference with that test procedure, but we don't have that luxury this time because, you know, they don't do enterococcus testing in Belfast at this time. So
They won't until their new license comes in?
What's that?
They won't need to until their new license comes in?
Right. They're not going to have an issue. They're a secondary facility. I don't suspect they're going to have any problems, but you know, obviously we do. It's just rooting out, you know, the chemical interference. We certainly
I would like to make sure that we have a good paper trail back and forth between us and the DEP so that they don't think we're trying to put anything.
No, I thought about sending you all the correspondence back and forth between myself, NEL, DEP, and IDEX, and perhaps I'll do that if you'd like.
Yeah.
You might be able to better understand, you know, the issues, but I think it's going to turn, you know, I think it's down to, you know, figuring out what the right dilution is for our weight.
At the same time, you've also once again increased the amount of chlorine we're putting in.
Well,
right?
Historically for fecal coliform, we have been able to get non-detects with chlorine residuals of around 2.5. You know, the chlorine residual we had for the test sample that was submitted a few days ago on Tuesday, it was 24.8. And so once we can confirm that the 1 to 10 dilution is going to eliminate this chemical interference, we can then start lowering, you know, the chlorine residual to find, you know, to bump into what that threshold is.
Right.
So that we can reduce our chemical usage and save a little money. But it's going to take some time to do this. This is a test organism we've never tested for. There's some, you know, trial and error going on here, both with the labs, with ourselves, and of course, even with the DEP. The DEP recognizes that there's an issue that has to be, you know, resolved, you know, with these primary plants, because we're not the only 301H facility, you know, in the state that, you know, is having problems with this. So.
Okay.
If you talk to Fernie, he'll tell you, I don't even know who the 10 might be. He says 9 out of 10 of these 301H facilities in Maine are having some difficulty with this. So it's not isolated to us.
Well, that's good.
Okay. The other thing was we had a fairly big water leak that was coming right out at the bottom of Griffin Street and Broadway. People were, as they walked, were seeing clear water running across the street there. It was not coming from the immediately adjacent house. And it took a while for Billy to track it down to a house, the third house up the hill from there, where they had a leak inside the house that really trashed their house.
Oh.
And so he and Matt Brown dug it up and repaired it from the outside part of it. But you know, all of us, as we walk in the village, if you see clear water running in a ditch, you should always be thinking that maybe there's a water leak there.
So there was a break in the house. It wasn't, so it's there.
It was in their house. It was up on the second floor. It really messed up the house. I think it probably ran for a good long, I don't know. How long?
About a day, 33,000 gallons worth.
Wow.
You know, 33,000 gallons can do a lot of damage to a home, as you can imagine.
And the owner of the house died the day before this was
Oh no.
became evident that there was the leak. So
Whose
it's
house?
say the name again, Billy.
Sampo?
Sampo.
On the south side or north side?
North side of Griffin Street coming downhill.
Yeah, okay. So just below Marjorie Crowley.
Yeah.
Down from
two
that.
walls, I think.
Two houses.
Oh. That's a shame.
So, and anything else in the superintendent's report that?
No, I don't think so. A reminder, we did submit a progress report. You know, ask for a 1-year extension in the event that we couldn't buddy up, you know, Coronation Building.
Okay.
It's June 12th, so too early probably to get any instincts about what's going to happen on June 30th.
Well, I talked to Tim just after David left this morning, and he says that there's been very little activity thus far, but also we recognize that most people, being human, you know, wait to the last minute, which is June 30th, to submit proposals. So I'm not surprised, I guess.
And I take it no feedback yet from the EPA and DEP on your progress report.
Nothing, not a word. No.
Okay.
So in your letter to the DEP and EPA, the 6-month letter, you did raise the possibility that we might need an extension.
Right.
Yeah, he adopted the changes that we had all chimed in on.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you all for commenting on that.
So given the fact that this project is out to bid, I will point out that we have had a bid submitted through Mike Godfarley to submit a bid for what it would cost them to do the groundwork while they're down here also doing the work for the seawall. And they submitted a bid that was about, I don't have it right here in front of me. But it was, about $40,000,
I think it was around 36,000.
$36,000.
Right.
The scope of the work included the hatch and the manhole cover, but not the V-notch weir. It included all the excavation and all of the plugging of pipes into the tanks, but the destruction of the old plant and carting it away. It did not include the pouring of a foundation. But in terms of addressing the scope of the project, it's actually a pretty good document, and so you at least have the notion that someone could bid that part of it, or that if we get bidders at this round of bidding, that they could certainly communicate with Farley about doing that part of the project. I didn't feel we could send Farley's bid to any of the bidders because I think that somehow violates the bidding process.
Yeah,
But-
I was even going to recommend that you not use words like bid, that we have received a bid.
Well, I mean, I'm aware of a bid that they had.
Proposal to do a project which is not as described in the bid, but
Yeah,
it's
well-
an alternative.
Yeah, right. So at any rate, their proposal, which is not necessarily in response to a bid, is something that we have in our possession. It's a useful document. It was good for 30 days and it was addressed on May 28th, so it's going to run out before the date that we open our bids. Nevertheless, I suspect that it's a good faith offer. I would like to talk about what we do on the bid opening day and how quickly we need to respond to that. How much time, how much. So we're going to have a Zoom meeting on the day that the bid is opened. Is that correct? And Tim will coordinate that?
Well, I was going to ask a question about whether we should have a Zoom meeting. Well, yes, the executive order extended now to July 1st, because we've opened our office June 1st. So,
So the bid opening is on the 30th of June.
right.
And the 3rd of July is allegedly Independence Day observed. That doesn't mean that we couldn't have a Zoom meeting. Although is that enough time to figure out what we're going to do or not?
Well, I think it depends what we see and when we open the bids on June 30th.
So we can decide on the 30th how soon we need to meet and what work has to be done between then. But I would like to think that we could proceed expeditiously if we have bids.
Yes, I agree.
So I think people maybe should be thinking about either the 3rd or the 10th for a Zoom meeting. The 10th would be our regular meeting anyway, wouldn't it?
Yes, the 10th is our regular meeting.
Yeah.
And the 3rd would work.
What is your pleasure?
Well, unless someone has a profound disagreement about penciling something in for the 3rd, let's pencil something in for the 3rd. Let's hope that we have such detailed and varied and multiple bids that we might want to take a few more days to evaluate them. But all the signs are indicating that we're going to get slim pickings.
Well, I don't know whether we know that, but it certainly is my fear, but I don't know that.
I say that in part because it sounds as though the Farley alternate proposal, which is inconsistent with the bid packet, so it's not a bid, but it sounds as though that line item is very consistent with the line item that we had from the one bidder that we opened on May whatever.
That's because Farley was going to be a subcontractor for that.
Well, Tim said I was reminded of this on May, when I looked at the notes. Tim said we all assumed Farley was the sub for Apex, but in fact, it was not.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
So that my point is that number, that single line item does seem to match what we all reacted to as an extraordinarily high number. That's all.
I don't know whether I reacted to the ground part of it as high. I knew I reacted to the electrical and a lot of other things as ridiculously high.
Yeah.
And I don't have any way to judge on the groundwork
Right.
without some comparisons. Okay.
I think we select the low bidder, if we do,
Yeah.
you know, at that point in time, we can sit down, you know, with who that contractor is and discuss incorporating, you know, Farley's bid.
If it fits in with the
Project, you know, and it may be less, it may be more.
Yeah.
I think preferably we'd like to have Farley do that work because they're right there on site. But if it amounts to costing the village, you know, a whole lot of more money, then of course you wouldn't do it. But maybe if it's just a little bit more, you might prefer that, even though it raises the price. But it also could lower the price too. We won't know until we reach that point.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think, what are our other items of business?
Did we have any financials? I saw general financials. I don't recall seeing utility
No.
financials.
None that I've seen, no.
No.
We have been going through as the overseers. We met for 2 hours in a budget workshop to go over the budget. And although we will be adopting the numbers presumably this Sunday in order to put the warrant together, it might be useful to have utility trustees who aren't overseers present at the overseers meeting, because we had a substantial conversation about eliminating the rent for the sewer department. So far, the budget that we're penciling in for the general budget does not have that $3,000 charge against the sewer department. And certainly I would like to have advocates there for that line. I've done what I can to eliminate the rent for the sewer. I made no advocacy for eliminating the rent for water. So that's
So
the overlaps there, I think, in terms of the budgets are.
So your other issue you're having to deal with the budget is the fact that the town of Northport is probably not going to give us the $25,000 that they usually give us. And we have no way to get up at a town meeting and say, this is a terrible idea, and who's going to grade all those roads, maintain all those roads, plow all those roads, which are your job if they're not our job.
Well, we are putting together a budget. As you know, the budget is always conditional. It always says we vote to raise this much money, and we intend to raise it from $25,000 from the town and the rest from the village tax base. But if the town doesn't give us the 25, then the village taxes go up. Right. So we, in the line item is still at 25, and we intend to have an education sessions to bring the selectmen who drive that discussion back on board to understand what a bargain that is for them, because Billy and the village is doing all the work that they would otherwise have to do. So we certainly weren't going to, in the budget, say uncle and budget 15 on the assumption they wouldn't give us what they have customarily given us. But you're right, there is a possibility that that budget will be $10,000 short in income, and that will come off the taxpayers' backs in another way. Right. In terms of how the relationship between the utilities and the general budget, the lines that overlap always are staffing and payroll and payroll benefits, and all of those are all lined up the way they should be. There was considerable conversation. Nina will chime in on this if she wants. A considerable conversation about how we can whether there would be a rationale for changing the personnel lines for expenses, given that Steve is stepping back, Nina's doing such a fantastic job, but we're looking for ways to get a lower hourly rate. And so anyways, there's lots of talking on that end. I do think that I was persuasive on the $3,000 on the rent, that we're really paying rent for nothing. But I don't want to be alone on that conversation on Sunday. I don't want to erode what I think I was helpful to you all on Sunday. That's my point.
I had a couple of other things I wanted to just bring up for your general ideas about. If you recall, when we were faced with the issue that we were going to have to raise our sewer rates, at one point there was some interest, oh, well, we'll lower the water rates and raise the sewer rates and they'll cancel each other out. Which in point of fact,
Yes.
We've retired a $30,000 bond. We used the money from that $30,000 bond last year to do the Cove Road water main. There certainly are still other projects with the water that have to be done in the village. But I think Dick did some rough math about how much $30,000 spread over 330 users would amount to. And it certainly would not add up to the $165 sewer raise. It might be a nice thing to talk about, but I honestly don't. In order to change your water rates, you have to go to the PUC. They have to study your structure. I don't think it's something that's going to happen this year. But I would be interested in whether that's something that other people feel we should be pursuing.
I was a strong advocate of that idea when Miles, I think in particular, raised it. It seemed rather brilliant to me. And so I discussed it as a member of the finance committee with Steve with a great deal of enthusiasm, and he threw very heavy wet blanket on that by reminding me that one reason these rates are where they are is because we have an infrastructure that we have to maintain, and that infrastructure is pipes and pumps and the people that manage all that, and that's not going to go away. And people are not clamoring to reduce their rates. Yes, we do have the benefit of not having that bond anymore, but there's other resources that we have to take care of. So,
well,
Gave that $1,000 back to all our users, it would only reduce their trimesterly bill $30. So, but $30 among 330 users for the water department is quite significant.
Yeah.
And moving forward with a lot of these projects that we would do if there was money to do it.
So I just think that it may be something that comes up that we're going to have to, talk about, say, at the annual meeting or in whatever setting we talk about things like that. I think we should have the idea of how much the pipe cost us for 20 years while it was being paid for. And I mean, for years we've said, well, you're not, the water itself is cheap. It's the infrastructure that costs money. And I suppose we were a little loose in saying that it was digging that pipe to Belfast that cost all the money. But there's, as you say, there's a lot of infrastructure here that's not just the pipe to Belfast. Okay, the other question I would have is, should we have any sort of informational meeting before the annual meeting about where we are with our project?
I think that's brilliant.
Good idea.
It certainly shouldn't be until we know where we are. So
yeah, I mean, we're not gonna know we have a permit. I mean, a building permit or a shoreline zoning permit till after the 14th.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to know where we are with our bids until after the middle of the month.
And we're still limited in terms of public gatherings. Remember that the community hall generally has been closed for public gatherings, and the most recent executive order issue came down on June 5th to address town meetings. There is a provision there about 50 people. It's one of those executive orders that it goes on for 8 pages talking about all the exceptions. And so you have to create a Venn diagram to understand what it says.
I was imagining spreading people out every 6 feet in Ruggles Park,
Yeah,
like camp meeting, only wider space.
Yeah. We'll do it in Auditorium Park, and we'll dress. we'll dress in old clothes. Let's certainly pick a date, and then we can worry about the logistics.
Well, I almost think you're almost thinking that you're the end of July, early August. I mean, there's not much time.
I was going to suggest the Saturday or Sunday after the 14th.
So the 18th or 19th?
Yeah, because we'll know then if we have our permit. We'll know then if we have a bid that is acceptable. What will we do, Dick, about following up with the DEP or EPA about the concept of an enlargement of time?
Well, we've already made the request. you know.
Right. So at what point will we follow up with them on that?
Oh, you mean the timing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if we know that we can't get a permit from the town to build within the shoreline, that would be an issue. When we know that we have or do not have a bid that's acceptable to the village, and or more funding has to be sought after, then that might be the time to do it.
So
Which,
maybe
to know all those things by when?
14th. So, but maybe to
Right.
get a reaction or response from EPA, we would need to wait longer. So maybe that militates in favor of a meeting on the 25th or 26th.
Let me look.
The annual meeting is the 11th.
18th, 19th, or 25th, 26th.
Yeah.
Which is better? First of all, we can have this as a Zoom meeting. And a lot of people would be able to attend a Zoom meeting. Not everybody, probably. What do you think?
I think that we'll have more to report if we do it the 25th, 26th, because we might have followed up with the EPA and DEP.
Yeah.
And we might have received an answer.
Okay. Do you have any feeling about trying to have an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting? It seems to me we should be planning on a Zoom meeting until someone says that things have opened up more.
Yeah, and we need to study that executive order, which I haven't done. We're supposed to be talking about it in detail on Sunday, but it's dense.
Well, this is all very tentative.
Yeah.
But I do think that we ought to have an informational meeting, and I realize it's awfully close to the annual meeting, whenever and however that's going to be. But it's also when the people are here.
Yeah, no, you're right. So let's plan it on Saturday, the 25th, more to be, details to be reported.
Okay. Any other business? Nina?
I have spoken to CUSI about adding billing for taking credit cards, and the cost is only $270 per year
Wow.
to the village.
Tremendous.
The fee is passed on just like every other government entity does, $295 or whatever added to the customer if they choose to use it. But there's just and I went through I have the contract already. And I called her and I said, look, you've got all these numbers zeroed out. You tell me for sure. And she's like, it's only $270 per year, and it gets added to your current amount.
I am all in favor of that. You know, I think we're going to find that in this day and age, people don't like handling money. They don't like handling checks. And I think that there's a good chance that this will work well for most, not everybody, but for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Yep.
So I
we're-
don't know what the next step
It's-
is. I just wanted to bring it to you.
Okay.
So I move that we authorize Nina to confer with the treasurer to implement that change in the contract. I think he might need to sign it or something.
I second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Yeah, everyone, please.
And I'm working on building, I haven't started it yet because I'm still working on the structure, but building a website for the village. So that's where it will be housed. So that way the village has its own place where their information goes and we don't have to rely on anybody else to, you know, do anything for us.
Well, so Koozi's going to work for sewer and water. It's not going to work for the village per se.
No, but there's going to be a website for the village that the link for CUSI is going to go onto. So what I'm saying is when we post events and calendar and all of your notices, the village will be in charge of, I mean, not village, it'll be me probably, but the village will be the authority on posting the information. You won't have to go through a secondary party
Yeah.
to have your information sent out to the villagers. And it will
Okay.
also get you so that you can get people's email addresses, and because they're going to sign up for newsletters and things like that. So it will solve a lot of different issues all at the same time.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
A couple things. We know our next meeting is going to be the 3rd. Or actually, we have our Zoom meeting for the bid opening on the 30th, and our meetings on the 3rd. Nina, is it possible when you get your minutes done to send it to me as a Word document that I could look at and go over, and then I'll send it back? If you do it quickly, I'll sort of remember what we said at the meeting.
Okay.
Whereas a
do
month
the best
later,
I
could never
can.
remember.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any citizen concerns? I see Craig's out there.
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other business?
No, ma'am.
This is maybe the earliest we've ever finished. It's not even. Billy.
Ah, Billy.
So, why I was late getting on was I was showing the plans to Bob Cole.
Mm-hmm.
He was going over the plans in the other room for the coronation building and stuff, and his sister, which I believe Jane knows,
Mm-hmm.
she was in there going over it too. They were having a pretty good debate back and forth on certain things. One of the things that the woman, I can't remember her name, kept bringing
Laura.
up was
Laura
Was
Richardson.
okay, was placement of the generator. Had it been moved inside? And I said, well, there's not much space. He said, well, if you do away with the sink, you could put it in there. I said, well,
Inside of the-
no.
I didn't think it was safe to have a generator inside.
Okay, it's
No.
illegal
No,
for the
there's-
generator building.
Apparently there is an industrial generator that is made to be inside and is vented outside. So there are, it's certainly not the kind of generators that we have. It's a different kind of generator, but then you wouldn't have to have one outside, as I understand. They're designed to be inside.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
So-
the question was.
So that was a question, and then some other things. You know, it is a very small building, but Bob was moving back away from her a little bit and kind of shaking his head. It's like, you know, and So I don't know where that's gonna go, but at least there was some people then looking at it and talking about it. So I just wanted to bring that up so you guys knew that.
Good.
Good. It's always good for people to raise their concerns directly.
Okay.
Well, I think they were thinking about bidding on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one other, I mentioned this to Billy and Dick today. I have 3 5-drawer files from my office where I used to keep my records, where I no longer keep my records, that I would be happy to give to the village if the village had a place and if it was useful. There's the pull out, and they sit on their sideways instead of, so they aren't as deep, they are wider. And I would be happy to donate them to the village if there's a place to put them or any use. So Janae's doing some filing. The people who work in the office know there's not a lot of room there. I don't know whether there is some offsite place where some of the old files could be safely stored. But
Well, we're also looking to replace the file cabinets there because they are broken and
well, so I have 3 pretty good 3-drawer files, which I'd be happy to show anyone. They're sitting downtown Belfast right now.
okay,
But
That would be,
yeah. Those file cabinets, I had to go through them yesterday, and yeah, you pull on one and the handle, you almost punch yourself in the head if you let go wrong.
okay.
and there's at least one drawer that doesn't open at all. It's
Yeah.
jammed. So
Yep.
Well, I have these. I have no more use for them, and I would happily give them to the village.
Okay,
So just
that would be,
as you think about all of the, I mean, I don't want to lose our historical documents as we thin things out, but at the same time, I think that there probably are records there that are sort of like keeping your taxes beyond 3 or 5 years. You wonder
keep
why.
your taxes for at least 7 years. Not 3 or 5, it's 7. They will come back up to, and they can go back as far as they want to, but I would suggest 7 years.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
What?
yay.
Okay.
Yay! See you on Sunday.
Okay, great. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.